Valerie stood barefoot among the shattered ceramic, potting soil, and damp stains, holding in the palm of her hand a sealed package that clearly displayed her daughter's date of birth. The plastic was opaque with dust, and the edges of the duct tape had darkened, but inside, everything had been meticulously preserved. The tiny newborn bracelet, the old hospital tag, a small silver crucifix on a piece of red thread, a flash drive. The bracelet bore her maiden name, the room number, the designation of girl, 6 pounds 9 ounces, and not a single word about her death. 17 years ago, they had told her something entirely different. Back then, the doctor had not allowed her to see the baby. Hugh had held her hand and whispered that they had to move on. Later, they informed her of severe complications and irreversible infertility. Now, all of that lay in the dirt next to the broken flower pot. Valerie hoped her mind would find a simple explanation, a mistake, someone else's package, a cruel joke, but she had handed that very crucifix to the delivery nurse herself right before the birth. A week earlier, Hugh had received a plant from a delivery man. The doorbell rang in the morning while Valerie was clearing the table after breakfast. Hugh walked into the entryway looking irritated. He had to leave for a business trip in 2 days. "Delivery for the Miller family," a male voice said from the other side of the door. "From whom?" "It doesn't say." Valerie heard the crinkling of paper, a scrape against the floorboards, and a strange pause. Then, Hugh muttered a curse under his breath. In the entryway stood a tall plant with broad, dark leaves. The pot was deep ceramic, with a raised pattern along the rim. Hugh was holding a small note. His face had transformed, as if he had just seen someone from a buried past. "What is it?" Valerie asked. He startled, crumpled the paper, and shoved it into his pants pocket. "Nothing. The delivery guy messed up the shipping slip. It is for us." "Yes. Who is it from?" "I ordered it. I saw it at a shop, liked it, and had them bring it. In their Boston apartment, plants never survived. Her husband usually called potted plants dust collectors. Now you like having a jungle in the house. Why not?" He smiled far too quickly. "The house needs some life." Hugh lifted the pot and carried it into the living room. He didn't place it by the large bay window, but rather in a secluded corner near the bookshelf. "It won't get any light there," his wife pointed out. "No need to move it. I picked this spot." That day, she noticed Hugh approaching the plant and staring at the soil multiple times. "Do you want to repot it?" Valerie asked that night. "The soil looks strange. It has a lot of sand." "Don't touch it," he replied sharply. Then, he smiled. "I'm sorry, I just don't want you to trouble yourself. You have a lot to do tomorrow, and my flight leaves the day after. You never cared about my plants before. People change." Valerie offered a half smile, but deep down, a sense of unease lingered. That night, she woke to the sound of a soft click. A dim light seeped from under the bathroom door. Her husband's voice sounded muffled. "I can't right now." She might wake up. A pause. "Yes, I know what it says. I will handle it myself when I get back from the trip." Valerie propped herself up on one elbow. "No, Mom. Don't come over. I will check everything myself." He hung up before his wife had to pretend to be asleep again. She rolled over. For a long time now, Valerie had kept quiet whenever she sensed a lie in an answer beforehand. The next day, Hugh packed his suitcase. Before leaving, he stopped by the plant. "You don't need to water it much. Where are you getting all this knowledge?" "I read it on the internet." He adjusted the pot on its stand. "The important thing is that you don't repot it until I get back. You can't find ceramic like this anymore. I'll take a look at it myself later." "Hugh, it is just a plant." He turned around far too quickly. "Everything is simple to you until it breaks," he said, and instantly regretted it. At the door, he kissed her on the cheek. "I will call you tonight. Have a good trip." The first day without Hugh passed quietly. That night, her husband called from the hotel, asked about the electric bill and the neighbors. Then, suddenly, he asked, "How is the plant? Is it still in its spot? Where would it go?" "I don't know. You like moving everything around." After the call, Valerie approached the pot. The soil near the roots seemed slightly sunken, as if someone had hastily dug into it and pressed the clumps back down. She leaned in but noticed nothing unusual, just a fine mark on the ceramic resembling a knife scratch. On the morning of the third day, she decided to clean the windows. The plant was keeping her from reaching the corner. Valerie grabbed the stand, but remembered Hugh's request and left everything as it was. "This is ridiculous," she said aloud. "Being afraid of a flower pot in my own living room." She cleaned the first pane, then the second. A wet trail was left on the hardwood floor. Valerie took a step back, slipped, and brushed against one of the broad leaves. The stand wobbled. The heavy pot tipped to the side. The thud was muffled. The ceramic shattered into pieces. The soil fell out in a compact block. The roots were exposed, and the leaves toppled over. Valerie stifled a gasp and backed against the wall. "Oh my God, Hugh is going to kill me," she whispered, and instantly grew angry with herself. He wouldn't kill her, but he would look at her as if she hadn't broken a pot, but rather a highly important contract. Valerie crouched down and began picking up the shards. She brushed the dirt away with her hand to free the roots, and felt a thick plastic deep at the base. At first, she thought it was a polyethylene drainage mesh. She pulled it. The package didn't yield. It was buried deep, almost under the root system. Valerie grabbed a kitchen knife. She carefully pried the clump of dirt apart and extracted a bundle wrapped in wide duct tape. There was something inside. She didn't dare cut the wrapping right away. Everything crossed her mind. Money, stolen jewelry, Hugh's private documents. The knife sliced through the tape. The first thing to fall out was the bracelet. Valerie picked it up with 2 fingers. The plastic strip was stiff, yellowed, with a dark stamp. It was the kind of bracelet they put on newborns in hospitals. The bracelet read Valerie Davis, Room 6. Girl, 6 pounds 9 ounces. Beneath the date, the tag slipped out. Then the small silver crucifix. She had bought that very one 2 months before the delivery at a religious goods store near Boston Common. Hugh had laughed back then, saying the baby hadn't even been born and already had lifetime protection. Before the delivery, she had handed the crucifix to Rosemary. The delivery nurse told her that hospital policy prevented putting outside objects on infants immediately, but she kept it in her scrub pocket anyway and promised to do it. After the news of the baby's death, Valerie asked about the crucifix. The nurse replied that she didn't know anything. Hugh said that in such a tragedy, it was impossible to think about objects. And now, the crucifix rested in her palm. Valerie crawled over to the sofa, pulled out the flash drive, and stared at her laptop. She needed to know, but fear was lodged in her throat like a dry knot. She plugged the device in. The folder opened quickly. There was only one video. She clicked on the file. An older woman in a bathrobe appeared on the screen. Behind her was a bathroom medicine cabinet. She stared directly into the camera for a long time. Then she began to speak. "Valerie, if you are watching this, it means I was in time to give you what I should have given you many years ago. My name is Rosemary Jenkins. I was the nurse at your delivery." Valerie covered her mouth with her hand. "Your little girl did not die. She was born weak, but alive." It took a moment, but eventually, she cried. "I held her. She was wearing the crucifix you asked me to put on her. Then they took the baby to an isolation unit, and they told you they couldn't save her. The crucifix was returned to me." The recording was interrupted by a coughing fit. The woman took a sip of water. The order came from Dr. Ignatius Woods. Dr. Sylvia Vance was right beside him. She prepared the paperwork. "Your husband knew. His mother did, too. I saw Agnes in the service hallway that morning. She was talking to Woods. Then Hugh showed up. They handed him an envelope. I don't know how much was in it, but after that, they logged something else into the registry." Valerie slammed the laptop shut. Her entire previous world was torn from its foundations. She squeezed her eyes shut, but she saw the hospital in Boston as clearly as if she were lying there again. The yellow light of the bedside lamp, the pain in her lower abdomen, the doctor at the door, Hugh beside her with his hand on her shoulder, his voice near her ear. "Don't torture yourself. You don't need to see this." Her mother-in-law by the window, pressing a tissue to her lips. Then the injection, the abyss, the morning. "Where is she?" Valerie had whispered. "They already took her away," Hugh replied. "It is protocol. I want to say goodbye." "You can't. Why? The doctors say you can't get out of bed. You just came out of a major surgery." She had believed him. Hugh then brought her tea, slept in the armchair, chased away visitors. Valerie opened the laptop again. Rosemary continued. "I was scared. I am ashamed to say it. But I was afraid of losing my job, my apartment, everything. They forced us to keep quiet. They threatened Teresa Mitchell with a criminal charge. Some got money. Others simply got scared. And now that I am dying, I realize that silence is also a crime." The woman held the crucifix up to the camera. "This was with your daughter. I kept it. The bracelet has no deceased mark because they took the first bracelet off before they made the swap. Then they drew up different papers. Look for Woods. Look for Vance. Look for the last name Brooks. I think they named the girl Lucy. I don't know anything else. Forgive me, if you can. Valerie stopped the recording. The last name hit her hard. Brooks. Lucy. Somewhere out there, a 17-year-old girl was living. She had a life Valerie had never seen. She went into the bedroom. In the top drawer of the dresser lay an old folder. Inside were the discharge papers, a copy of the certificate, an ultrasound, a greeting card with a stork. Valerie took the documents out and spread them across the bed. The date matched, the room number matched, the name of the attending physician on one report was Vance. The signature of the chief medical officer at the bottom was Woods. For 17 years, those names had been kept in her house. Valerie grabbed her phone and almost dialed Hugh's number. Her finger hovered over the call button. She wanted to hear his voice, demand an answer, scream in such a way that he couldn't keep pretending. But the very next second, she pictured him standing next to the plant on the day of the delivery, the crumpled note in his pocket and his late-night words echoing. Yes. I know what it says. He knew. If she told him now that she had found the package, Hugh would have time to warn his mother, Woods, Vance, anyone. He would have time to destroy whatever was left. He might even get to the Brooks family, to Lucy. Valerie slowly set the phone down on the bed. She couldn't scream. She couldn't run to her mother-in-law's house. She couldn't even cry for too long. The truth lay before her. As fragile as a newborn, they could snatch away from her all over again. She returned to the living room, took photos of the package, the bracelet, the tag, the crucifix, and the flash drive. Then she recorded a video of the broken pot, the roots, the soil, the corner near the bookshelf. After that, she wrapped her discovery in a clean towel and hid it in a shoebox. She swept up the shards separately and placed the plant with its roots in a plastic bucket. In the afternoon, Hugh called. Valerie stared at the screen. She was terrified to answer. The silence felt even worse. She swiped the screen. Honey, are you home? Her husband's voice sounded exactly the same, even affectionate. I'm home. What have you been up to? Valerie looked at the dark streaks of dirt on the floor she hadn't had time to mop. Cleaning the windows again. Yeah, don't push yourself too hard. Sometimes you forget you don't have the best health. Before, Valerie would have perceived concern. Now, she perceived control. I remember. Everything okay? Yes. The silence stretched out. Is the plant still there? Hugh asked. Valerie averted her gaze to the bucket holding the roots. The leaves were wilting. One had snapped near the base. It is. In the same spot? She closed her eyes. The image of the note he had crumpled by the door flashed before her. By the window, Valerie said. It gets more light there. A dead silence fell over the line. I asked you not to move it. Hugh, it is just a plant. He didn't respond immediately, then spoke far too softly. I'm not mad. Valerie stared at the bracelet with the date that no longer meant death. I'm not mad either. Well, I hope to be back soon, but you left for 2 weeks. We will see how things go. I might come back early. She realized he was spooked. I will be waiting for you, Valerie said. Hugh hung up first, abruptly, without his usual goodnight wish. A few minutes later, a text arrived. Send me a picture of the plant. I want to see how it looks by the window. Valerie read the sentence twice, then slowly raised her eyes to the broken ceramic by the wall and realized she was almost out of time. Hugh's text hung on the screen like an order. Valerie didn't move. The living room smelled of damp earth, a wet rag, and cracked ceramic. In the plastic bucket rested the plant with its bare roots. If she sent the photo now, Hugh would figure everything out. If she stayed silent, he would grow suspicious even faster. She forced herself to type a reply. Later, I just stepped out to run an errand. Hugh texted back instantly. Make sure you do it when you get back. Valerie stared at the brief message, and for the first time, her bewilderment gave way to rage. For 17 years, he had checked the status of her grief the way one checks a locked door. Now he feared the lock had been picked. She couldn't wait until morning. She scrubbed the floor, picked up every piece of ceramic, wrapped the evidence in the towel, and packed it all into a duffel bag. Then she took out the old folder with the medical reports. Complications, infertility, the doctor's signature. Yesterday, those papers seemed like the seal of her tragedy. Now, they were the traces of a crime. Valerie laid the bracelet, the tag, the crucifix, and the flash drive out on the table. She photographed the date, the room number, the last name, the red thread, and the hollow gap among the roots with her phone. Then she recorded a short video. Today, after my husband Hugh Miller left, I broke the flower pot containing the plant delivered by a courier a few days ago. In the soil, I found a sealed package. Inside, there were items related to my delivery 17 years ago. In the kitchen, the clock read 8:30 p.m. She needed a new pot before dawn. Hugh had asked for a photograph. In the image, he needed to see exactly what he expected. At the 4-hour home goods store, they didn't have the exact match. The clerk, wearing a name tag that read Lydia, showed her the clearance items. There was a similar container in a different shade. The pattern was simpler, but the height was identical. I'll take it. And some potting soil. Gloves, too. Repotting in the middle of the night? The clerk stared at her a little too intently. The plant fell over. I have to save it. She was back home in half an hour. Valerie spread an old bedsheet on the floor. The plant proved to be resilient. The roots held together in a solid block, as if the plant was resisting too. She transferred it to the new container, filled it with dirt, packed the surface down, and turned it so that in the photo, the differences would be lost in the shadows. By 7:00 a.m., the living room looked almost exactly as it always did. The floor was clean, the plant sat by the window. Hugh texted at 8:20 a.m. Good morning. Valerie took a picture of the plant from a slight angle. The pattern was cast in shadow. She sent the image and sat on the sofa. Good morning. Here is your plant. She turned off the screen. The tremors hit her only then. As long as she had been busy, her body had held up. Her phone buzzed. An emoji with a heart and a wish for a good day arrived. Valerie did not allow herself to break down. She put the flash drive, the crucifix, the bracelet, and the tag into a metal cookie tin. She also hid a memory card with copies of the video and the printed photos inside. She wrapped the tin in a scarf and drove to the house of Irene Dalton, an old friend of hers. Irene ran a tailor shop in the courtyard of an old building in the historic district and didn't ask unnecessary questions. I need to leave a box with you. If I call and tell you to find me a matching zipper for the skirt, give it only to attorney Arthur Evans. Irene looked at her sternly. Trouble with your husband? And with a lot of other people. She locked the tin in a cabinet and grabbed her car keys. Arthur Evans worked in an office building near the financial district. His secretary told her his schedule was full until the afternoon, but the lawyer heard the name Miller and invited her in. She told him about the delivery, the complications, the plant, the hidden note, the broken pot, and the midwife's recording. When she mentioned the last name Brooks, the pen in Evans's fingers stopped. Excuse me? There is a family in the city with that last name. Let's finish with what we have first. He turned off the video and remained silent for a long time. Valerie, a recording from one person is not enough. The bracelet and the tag will become crucial evidence if their origin is confirmed. A secret DNA test is risky, but for your personal peace of mind, a private lab will do. For a trial, we will need a court-ordered forensic test. And if Hugh comes back early, do not mention the package, do not argue over the phone, secure the evidence, and seek confirmation. The attorney drafted a list: copies, documentation of the discovery, receipt for the new pot, the delivery company, hospital witnesses, background check on the Brooks family. Rosemary mentioned Teresa Mitchell, Valerie said. The nurse. We will start with her, but do not pressure her. A frightened witness is usually more damaging than a silent one. Teresa's address was tracked down by the afternoon. Through a former hospital employee, Evans got the street and apartment number. Valerie went alone. She needed to see the face of the person who had been near her loss. Teresa lived on the first floor of a 5-story brick building. The door opened only as far as the security chain allowed. Can I help you, Teresa Mitchell? I am she. What is this about? Rosemary Jenkins gave me a recording. The chain rattled. Through the crack peeked a narrow face with deep lines around her mouth. What recording? About a delivery at Boston General, 17 years ago. My maiden name is Davis. Married name Miller. The door shut. Valerie thought the woman had gotten scared and wouldn't let her in, but a few seconds later, the chain was undone. The apartment smelled of medicine and pot roast. Teresa collapsed onto a stool, as if her legs refused to hold her. Rosemary passed away. Yes, it seems it happened shortly before they sent the plant. What plant? Valerie pulled out the photo of the crucifix. The nurse covered her mouth with her hand. Oh my God. Do you remember it? I don't want to get involved in this. They took my baby away, alive. Teresa squeezed her eyes shut. Don't ask me like that. How else am I supposed to ask you? On the other side of the wall, someone turned on a television. That borrowed vitality felt like a mockery. The baby cried. Teresa finally said, weakly, but she cried. Rosemary held her. Then Dr. Vance ordered the baby taken to isolation. By morning, the death record was already logged. I didn't see the body. Nobody was transferred to the morgue in front of me. Woods was arguing with Vance about money. I heard the words payment and fake documents. Then they ordered me to forget that night if I wanted to keep my job and avoid legal trouble. Was Hugh there in the morning? With his mother. Agnes was talking to Woods. Your husband was right next to her. Then they all left through the emergency exit. Could you repeat this on the record? Teresa backed away. They are not pinning a dead baby on me. You didn't take any money? No. I've spent my whole life choking on this, but I didn't take any money. They threatened to blame the baby's death on the night shift. I was terrified. And the birthmark. Teresa looked directly into her eyes. Near the collarbone, on the left, small, elongated. Rosemary even said, "Will she look like her mother?" At the door, Teresa added quietly, "If this goes to court, give me a heads up. I have to think about it." The truth begins where it gets scary to sign your name. Outside, Valerie sat on a bench near the entrance. She had a voice recorder in her purse, but she hadn't turned it on secretly. A hidden recording could ruin the chance for official testimony. She needed a live witness willing to speak. The next step was finding Lucy. Valerie typed the first and last name into her computer at home. By the afternoon, her hands were shaking more than the night she broke the flower pot. The search yielded several pages. Lucy Brooks appeared on the page of the local College of Design. A photo from an art showcase, a caption under an award, dark hair down to her shoulders, a thin chain around her neck. Valerie zoomed in on the image. Near the collarbone, on the left, a birthmark was visible. Small, elongated, like a comma, exactly like hers. She covered her face with her hands and, for the first time in 24 hours, allowed herself to cry. Not for long. Then she forced herself to reopen the page. Lucy was 17. Her profile had pictures of a cat, pencil sketches, a poster for a student play. In one photo, the girl hugged a woman, tagged as Mom Nora. In another, standing next to her, was a tall man, George Brooks. Valerie stared at this strange family and tried to hate them. She couldn't. Attorney Evans's reply came the next morning. Do not approach the girl without a plan. First your own personal safety, then the legal steps. How to secure that safety? There was a lab, but she remembered that material obtained in secret would not replace an official forensic test. She understood that, but the fear wouldn't leave her. Valerie understood everything, and yet she still drove to the college campus. She stood across the street near a newsstand, wearing a gray coat and sunglasses. Students walked out in groups, laughing, arguing about finals. Lucy appeared around noon with a friend. Valerie didn't recognize her by the birthmark, nor even from the photograph. There was something of Hugh in the way the girl walked, and something of Valerie herself in her youth in the tilt of her head. Lucy and her friend reached a small park and sat on a bench. The friend called her by name and walked over to a vendor to buy water. The girl pulled out her cell phone and left her tote bag open beside her. Sticking out the top was a hairbrush with a green handle. Valerie was 10 steps away. She could leave, call the lawyer, pursue the legal route. But what legal route was there for a woman who 17 years ago wasn't even allowed to say goodbye to her daughter? Lucy laughed into her phone and turned toward the walkway. Valerie approached as if just passing by, crouched down pretending to adjust her shoe strap, and with one swift motion grabbed the brush. The plastic scratched her palm. The girl didn't notice a thing. A minute later, Valerie was walking toward the bus stop, unable to feel her legs. In her purse, she carried the hair of her possible daughter, or some stranger's child, or the proof that would bring down the lives of several people all at once. Near her home, she called Martha Harrison from a private lab at the number Evans had provided. They met in the afternoon by the service entrance. Martha was younger than Valerie expected. She spoke softly and without excessive pity. For court, this is useless. I need to know for myself. Then we will run an anonymous comparative test. Your sample, and the second sample from the brush. How long will it take? A few days. We can rush it, but the result won't be any more reliable for it. Valerie handed over her biological sample, filled out the paperwork without using real last names, and walked out into the street when it was already getting dark. Her phone remained silent. Hugh wasn't texting. That was scarier than the messages. She spent 3 days jumping at phone calls, checking the plant, and staring out the peephole. On the fourth day, Martha called. "Valerie, come in. I won't discuss this over the phone." The lab was freezing. Martha slid an envelope across the desk. "The probability of biological maternity is extremely high." Valerie stared at the sheet of paper. The letters blurred, but the meaning didn't vanish. Lucy was her daughter. She hadn't died. She hadn't vanished. She lived in this very city, walked these very streets, bought coffee near the campus, called another woman Mom. That evening, Valerie drove to the Brooks house. Not for a confrontation, just to see the place where Lucy had grown up. The house turned out to be a 2-story suburban home, with warm light glowing in the windows and a cherry tree by the fence. On the porch stood Nora, wearing a cardigan, phone pressed to her ear. A minute later, Lucy rounded the corner. She was carrying a portfolio of drawings and a bag of cat food. Nora stepped forward, took the bag, and said something. Suddenly, Lucy pressed herself against her like a little girl struggling to act grown-up. The adoptive mother hugged her tightly, naturally, without doubting her right to do so. Valerie hid behind a tree across the street, unable to look away. In her purse, she carried the paper with the test results. The paper stated that Lucy was her daughter, but right by the fence, a flesh-and-blood girl clung to the woman she called Mom. Valerie realized the worst was yet to come when Hugh sent her a photo from his hotel. The image showed a plane ticket with an updated return date. Things are wrapping up fast. Might be back early. Hugh was coming back. Before he arrived, she had to do more things than ordinary courage allowed. Valerie started the car and drove a block away. Near a drugstore, she typed her reply. "Let me know when you have the exact date." Hugh answered almost instantly. "I'll tell you tomorrow." She put the phone away. Now the plant had become a trap. Her husband thought it was anchoring her to his hiding spot. He didn't know the dirt had already revealed everything. At home, Valerie didn't turn on the entryway light. She walked into the living room, approached the new pot, and touched the rim of the ceramic. Similar, but not the same. If Hugh looked closely, he would notice. If he started digging in the soil, he would figure it out instantly. She took several photos of the plant from different angles and sent one to her husband. "The leaves have perked up. You can tell it likes the spot." She stayed awake all night. Valerie read the reports. Vance, Woods, the date of the delivery, and the crucifix sitting right next to them. In the morning, she went to see Arthur Evans. The lawyer received her without preamble. A folder full of highlighters lay on the desk. "We have the result?" he asked. Valerie handed him the envelope. He read the document and took off his glasses. "For you, this is an answer. For a courtroom, for now, it is merely an indication. I know. From here on out, we cannot afford any mistakes. No secret meetings with the girl, no text messages. Adults first. The Brooks family. Yes, it is best to start with the father. George runs an architectural firm. A personal conversation is permissible as long as you do not threaten or demand anything. I don't want to take her away from them. Tell him that from the very beginning, and cling to that idea, even when it starts to hurt." Valerie nodded. "And the police report. I am preparing it. It will include the discovery, Rosemary's recording, your medical records, Teresa's testimony, and a petition to investigate the birth, the supposed death, the handover of the infant, and Lucy's adoption. We cannot leave Teresa unprotected. The witness will have to go on the record. Otherwise, they will tear us apart, claiming it is an emotional crusade without proof. Do not keep these items at home. We will turn them over through an official chain of custody. Arthur, if Lucy doesn't want to see me, then I will have to wait. The truth doesn't give me the right to break someone else's will." Valerie walked out with the address of George's firm, and the feeling that what awaited her was not the return of her daughter, but a walk through a minefield. George walked out of the glass building at 5:30, talking on the phone, and waved to the security guard. Valerie stepped forward. "George." He stopped. "Yes? Do we know each other?" "No. My name is Valerie Miller. I need to talk to you about Lucy." The man's face immediately shut down. "Are you from the school?" "No." "Then who are you?" Valerie pulled out the envelope with the copies. 17 years ago, at Boston General, I was informed that my daughter had died. Now evidence has surfaced showing the baby was given to another family. The name Brooks is mentioned on a recording. He looked at her as if he didn't understand English. "What did you say?" "I haven't tried to seek out Lucy. I won't speak to her without you, but you need to see this." She handed him the copy of the tag, and the photo of the crucifix. George took the papers. "Let's go to the car," he said. "We can't talk here." They walked to the SUV, parked in the reserved section. "Where did you get this?" Valerie told him everything. The plant, the note, the pot, the flash drive, the crucifix, Rosemary's name, and the names Woods and Vance. When the OB/GYN's name was mentioned, George jerked his head up. "Sylvia Vance. You know her. She helped us with the adoption. Nora couldn't have kids. We got the paperwork together, went through the agencies, and then an acquaintance put us in touch with her. For money." He gripped the folder. "We paid a lot. They explained it was to expedite the process, get certificates, lawyers, consulting fees. I wanted to believe that was why it was faster. We had paperwork. They told you the mother had surrendered her." "Yes, that a young woman had given birth, signed the papers, and left. I didn't sign any surrender. I was bedridden after surgery. They told me my daughter had died." George stayed silent for a long time. "Do you realize you are talking about my daughter right now?" "Ours." The word slipped out on its own. He flinched. "We shouldn't rush into anything. I'm sorry, but it is the truth. Lucy isn't an object you can return with a receipt. She grew up with us. We nursed her when she was sick. We drove her to extracurriculars. We stayed up all night before her exams. My life can't just be canceled either." George turned his head toward the windshield. "What do you want?" "The truth. A court-ordered DNA test. An investigation into the hospital. And for Lucy to know she wasn't abandoned. She won't be able to handle it. I couldn't handle it either. I simply continued to exist. Nora is going to lose her mind. That is why I came to you." George handed the copies back. "I have to verify everything. Verify it. I'm not demanding an answer today. And please, do not approach Lucy with this yourselves just yet. I won't. But you will take my number." Valerie left a slip of paper with her phone number on the dashboard. She got out of the car. "If I am lying, nothing can help me now." That evening, she received a call from an unknown number. "This is Valerie Miller." The woman's voice was sharp. "I am Nora. What did you tell my husband?" Valerie stood up from her chair. "What I needed to tell an adult before speaking to Lucy. You have no right to speak her name. I am trying not to hurt her, then disappear from our lives. I can't." "Yes, you can. You lived 17 years without her. You can keep on living." Valerie pressed the phone to her ear. "I lived because they told me she was dead, and I raised her since she was in diapers. I was the one who didn't sleep when she had a fever. Who do you think you are to show up now? The woman she was stolen from through lies." Silence fell over the line. "She is my daughter," Nora uttered. Valerie sank back into her chair. "I know you love her. You don't know anything. Possibly. But I don't want a war. The war has already started." The line went dead. Valerie sat there with the phone in her hand, and for the first time, she truly understood. Lucy had a mother, not by blood, but by nights, breakfasts, fears, and birthdays. Hugh called an hour later. "Your texts are really weird. I'm tired. Why did you go downtown today?" Valerie froze. "To pick up medication." "Downtown? There is a pharmacy right next to the house. I went to the pharmacy next to the old clinic. They have the medication I need." "I see." He didn't believe it. "When are you coming back?" she asked. "Soon. I'm doing everything I can to wrap things up early." "Why the rush?" "I missed you." "Me too." After the conversation, she immediately called Evans. Hugh asked why I was downtown. "That means he is tracking my credit card purchases, my phone, or the car. Check your family sharing settings. Turn off location tracking for the night, but no sudden moves. Tomorrow, we file the police report." "Already? After the call from the Brooks and your husband's reaction, we can't delay it any longer." The next day, at 10:00 a.m., Valerie sat next to her lawyer in a Boston Police Department precinct office. Detective Ray Fletcher received them without feigned severity. "When did you discover the package?" 2 weeks ago. "Why didn't you come in immediately?" "My husband could have destroyed the evidence. He received the plant first and hid the note." "Is the note preserved?" "No." "Hugh kept it. Were you able to read the text?" "No." Fletcher made a note. "Where is the physical evidence?" "Secured. Ready to be handed over officially." "Understood. We will open an inquiry based on the Jenkins recording. We will request the hospital records regarding the Brooks family. No acting on your own. No one communicates with a minor without her legal guardians. Understood?" "Yes." "The secret DNA test." Valerie tensed. Evans answered for her. It is not being submitted as forensic evidence. It is only the grounds for filing the report. The detective looked at Valerie. You will need to arm yourself with patience. I won't inform you of every step. Private conversations with doctors, witnesses, or the girl's family will compromise the case. I have already spoken personally with George Brooks and on the phone with his wife. Do not do it again. He closed the folder. I will take the materials. You will be properly notified of the next steps. Outside on the street, Valerie asked her lawyer, did a police detective really believe that? He doesn't have to believe it. It is his duty to investigate. Toward late afternoon, her mother-in-law, Agnes, showed up unannounced. Valerie opened the door and understood instantly. Her mother-in-law hadn't come over for tea. She wore an expensive gray suit, her lips pressed into a thin line. Hugh isn't here, Valerie said. I came to see you. Agnes stepped into the entryway as if she owned the apartment. She stopped by the living room and stared at the plant. Valerie closed the door. To what do I owe the visit? Enough. Of what? The mother-in-law offered a sneer. I've been informed that you are digging around the hospital. Police reports, old names, the delusions of a dying nurse. Who informed you? I still have friends. People respect those who know how to be grateful. So, the truth scared you. You were gravely ill. You don't even remember half of what happened, but you remember everything. I remember my son almost losing his mind over your condition. Over my condition? Or over the money? Agnes's face twitched for just a fraction of a second, but Valerie noticed. You don't know what you are getting yourself into. I do. For the first time in 17 years. The girl grew up in a good family. They gave her an education, a home, a name. Do you intend to crash into her life and declare yourself her mother? By what right? By the right that I gave birth to her. Giving birth isn't enough. The phrase struck with cold precision. Valerie didn't back down. How much did my daughter cost? Agnes lunged forward and slapped her across the face. The sound was sharp, short. The air in the living room trembled. Valerie slowly raised her head. Her cheek burned. Her mother-in-law was breathing heavily. You were always ungrateful, Agnes hissed. Hugh took care of you after you left the hospital. He endured an empty nursery and painful anniversaries. And now you want to destroy everything over some brat who doesn't know you from Adam. Valerie pulled out her phone and turned on the voice recorder, not even hiding it. Say that again. Agnes stared at the screen. Have you lost your mind? Repeat that the girl doesn't know me, and explain how you know who I am talking about. Her mother-in-law backed toward the door. I already regret ever trusting you people. Lucy will hate you. It was the first time Valerie had heard her daughter's name from Agnes's mouth, without having said it herself, without needing to ask. So you know her name? Have you been watching her life? Silence reigned in the hallway. Even the elevator on the other side of the door was silent. Agnes grabbed her purse. Hugh will be here soon. He will fix this himself. Let him try. Her mother-in-law left, slamming the door. A minute later, Valerie forwarded the recording to Evans. The reply came almost immediately. Keep the original. Do not upload it anywhere. This is important. Valerie pressed a damp washcloth to her cheek and walked over to the window. Down below, Agnes was talking on the phone, waving her free arm. That night, Valerie received a text from George. Nora is not ready for a meeting. I am reviewing the documents. I beg you not to approach Lucy, she wrote back. I won't approach her, but I have filed a report at the precinct. This is no longer just a private conversation. There was no reply. At 11:00 p.m., a notification from the airline arrived in the shared email account. Ticket modified under Hugh's name. Arrival the next morning. Valerie packed a bag with some clothes, documents, and medication. However, she decided to sleep at home. If she left now, Hugh would realize the evidence was no longer in the apartment. If she stayed, she would buy a few hours. In the morning, she heard the key in the lock before she even had time to pour her tea. Hugh walked in with his suitcase, didn't call her name, didn't smile. His coat was slung over his shoulder, and his face was worn from travel. He left his luggage by the wall and went straight to the living room. Valerie stood in the kitchen doorway. You're early. I had fewer things to do than I thought. He stopped by the plant, ran a finger along the rim of the new pot, then crouched down, touched the soil near the stem, and slowly turned his head. How did you guess the hiding spot was in the roots? Hugh asked. I didn't show you the note. Valerie remained in the doorway, watching his fingers grip the rim of the new pot. So there was a note, she said. Hugh stood up. Where is the package? Safe. No. You have no idea what you've gotten yourself into. I have a very clear idea. I finally saw my daughter's bracelet. Old garbage. A recording of a sick woman. A couple of things with no certified origin. I bought the crucifix myself. I gave it to Rosemary before the birth. And I ran a DNA test using hairs from the girl's brush. You stole the kid's hairbrush? You're insane. Even after the surgery, you had memory lapses. Don't you remember everything? I remember asking to see my baby. I remember you telling me it wasn't allowed. I remember your mother by the window. She didn't even cry that time. My mother was keeping it together for you. Yesterday, she knew Lucy's name, even though I hadn't told her. Hugh turned back to the plant. My mother spoke out of turn. Did you see her alive? He remained silent. Valerie took a step out of the kitchen. Her legs felt like lead, but her voice didn't tremble. Answer me. Did you see our daughter alive? Don't start. Did you see her? Hugh slammed the palm of his hand against the wall. Yes, I saw her once. For 1 minute. And what does that change? Valerie gripped the back of a chair. Everything. No, nothing. The doctors had already made the decision back then. The doctors? Or you? You were bedridden after the surgery. Hemorrhaging, fever, complications. Woods said the baby was weak and that you might not pull through. Your mother said that if I found out, I would break down completely, and that is why you sold her. Don't you dare. For how much? Hugh took a step closer. I was in massive debt. I went bankrupt with sports betting. Then the creditors went after my mother. She needed urgent surgery at a private clinic, and her insurance wouldn't cover it in time. Woods offered us a way out. A way out. The baby ended up with a rich family. The Brooks dreamed of having a baby. They have a nice house, connections, money. And you were at your breaking point. If they had handed you a sick newborn, you would have died with her. You decided for me. I was saving us. You were saving yourself. Hugh let out a short, resentful laugh. It is very easy to judge as the years go by. Back then, on the other side of that door, there were people I owed so much money to that they would have thrown us out of the apartment along with the furniture. My mother might not have survived the wait for state-funded insurance. And you were lying there, hooked up to tubes, hallucinating about a crucifix. What choice did I have? To be human. He was the first to look away. Lucy grew up fine. I never spoke her name. You wanted the truth yourself. The girl is alive, healthy, in school, has decent parents. What would you have ended up with? Diapers, hospital bills, depression, and an empty fridge. I ended up with an empty crib and a diagnosis of infertility. Valerie grabbed the bag she had packed in advance. I am filing for divorce. You aren't going anywhere. Move. He blocked her path. The recording of a dead woman will fall apart. The Brooks will hire their lawyers and make you look crazy. Lucy will hate you. On her documents, she has another mother, and they will explain to her why. You are nobody to her. I gave her life. You stole my chance to be a mother. Hugh grabbed the strap of her bag. She didn't struggle. She simply pulled out her phone and dialed Evans's number. Hugh won't let me leave the house. Hugh dropped the strap as quickly as if he had been burned. Over the speaker, the lawyer's voice rang out. Valerie, put it on speaker and walk to the door. Hugh, any attempt to detain your wife will result in a separate criminal charge. Hugh backed away. Leave. But don't come crying to me to protect you from the fallout. I already asked for protection, and not from you. An hour later, Valerie was sitting in Irene's tailor shop. The tin with the evidence rested on the table amidst fabric scraps. Evans examined the package, the flash drive, the photos, the crucifix, and the bracelet. We will hand this over officially now. Until the chain of custody report is filed. Better not to touch it too much. He confessed to me that he saw our daughter alive. Did you record it? No. I was only thinking about getting out of there. It doesn't matter. His words will eventually spill out if he loses control. Valerie signed the power of attorney and the divorce petition. Under the grounds, the lawyer coldly typed, irreconcilable differences, complete loss of trust, and impossibility of cohabitation. That same day, Detective Fletcher logged the items into evidence. He made no promises of results. There will be an investigation, he told her. We will contact you if necessary. Hugh knows now, so be careful and do not engage in any negotiations without your lawyer. He didn't tell her anything else. In the records room of Boston General, an employee pulled old maternity logs from dusty boxes. Fletcher, accompanied by an impartial witness, turned the pages wearing gloves. In one column, next to the name Davis, it read, "Girl, weight 6 pounds 9 ounces." On the following page, written in different handwriting, the death note appeared. Dr. Vance's signature was traced over a correction. Teresa Mitchell came in to give her statement 2 days later. "I can't sleep anymore," she said at the door of the office. Teresa spoke softly. The baby was born alive. Dr. Vance took her to an isolation unit. Woods ordered the registry rewritten. Agnes arrived first thing in the morning. Hugh was by the service exit. "Did you take any money?" the detective asked. "They didn't threaten me. They said they would fire me and charge me with the baby's death." Teresa signed her statement and broke down in tears in the hallway. "Doctor, Sylvia Vance was found at a private clinic. In the dates of her old planner were the initials B, O, H, M, J, R, and N, C, next to sums of money, and the word broker. When she heard about Teresa's statement, her former confidence vanished. "Woods called all the shots," she said. "I handled the medical side." The family that took the girl believed they were paying to expedite the adoption process. No one told them about the biological mother. And the husband? The husband knew, and his mother too. They came in willingly. At that moment, in the Brooks home, they were speaking in whispers. Nora sat on the sofa, clutching the photo album of Lucy's childhood to her chest. "Vance's signature is right there," her husband said, "and the mother's surrender certificate. I saw it. You believed it because you wanted to believe it. You did too. Don't you dare blame me. I'm just trying to understand how we could have not asked more questions." Nora closed the album, "Because they told us if we hesitated, they would give the baby to someone else. We have to tell Lucy. She shouldn't hear it from strangers. I am her mother, exactly why you have no right to lie to her." The conversation with Lucy took place that very evening. The girl had just gotten home from design school. "What happened?" she asked. George sat across from her. "A woman has come forward. She believes she might be your biological mother." "What?" Nora burst into tears before she could explain herself. "Mom, what's wrong?" "We didn't know," George said. "We were informed that you had been given up. The papers were in order. We believed it." Lucy yanked her hand away. "Are you telling me I am not your daughter? You are our daughter." Nora tried to reach for her. "You always have been." "Then why are you telling me this?" "Because there is an investigation. The hospital, old papers. It is possible a crime was committed." Lucy stood up abruptly. "I don't want to hear this. Honey. Don't call me that right now." "Who is this woman?" "Valerie Miller. She came to see us." "To see me?" "To me," the father confessed. "Not to you. So you were discussing it behind my back. We were trying to protect you. Everyone always says the same thing when they lie." Lucy ran upstairs and locked herself in her room. The next day, Valerie hand-wrote a letter. "Lucy, I am not asking you to choose me. You have the people who raised you. I just want you to know that I did not abandon you. I was told you had died. For 17 years, I went to the place where they told me you were buried. I brought flowers to a person who wasn't there." She tried to deliver the letter through George, but Evans stopped her. "It is too soon. Let the Brooks choose the right moment. Right now, any piece of paper will be seen as pressure." Valerie kept the envelope in her purse. Hugh, meanwhile, had no intention of waiting. George saw him at the entrance of his firm on Monday morning. "We need to talk," Hugh said. In the conference room, Hugh placed his phone on the table. "Valerie is unstable. After the delivery, she suffered severe trauma. Now she has found a recording and decided that your daughter is her baby. She has shown some objects, but things can be faked. She stole Lucy's hairbrush." George's expression didn't change. "How do you know about the brush?" Hugh hesitated for a fraction of a second. "She told me herself. She didn't tell me. Was she embarrassed? Did you know the baby was alive?" "I knew the doctors made a decision." "Don't dodge the question." Hugh stood up. "We all made a decision. You got a daughter. We got the chance to survive. Your family has been happy for 17 years. Why ruin the girl's life now?" George stood up. "Thank you." "For what?" "For answering." Hugh realized it too late. "I misspoke. You said enough. Get out. Valerie will destroy your family. You have already tried to destroy it, and you won't get away with it again." That same afternoon, George texted Valerie. "Lucy is willing to see you only if we are present, And your lawyer as well. Tomorrow at 6:00 p.m. No pressure. The next day, Valerie arrived at a neutral room in a counseling center suggested by the Brooks. Resting on her lap was the envelope with the letter and a small box with the crucifix. The door opened at exactly 6:00. Lucy walked in first. She wore a black hoodie, her hair tucked behind her ears, her chin held high. Behind her were Nora and George. Valerie stood up, but didn't take a single step. "Hello, hello," Lucy replied quietly. The therapist reiterated the rules. No interrupting, no demanding decisions. The conversation could be stopped at any moment. Lucy looked at Valerie. "It was you following me near the campus." "Yes, and you stole my brush." Nora whipped her head toward her. "What? Yes," Valerie said. "I was wrong. I needed to know if I was losing my mind. That is not an excuse. Do you think I should trust you after that?" "No, you don't have to." Lucy looked, taken aback. Apparently, she had expected pleas, tears, or justifications. "Then what are you doing here?" Valerie opened the box and placed the crucifix on the table. "This is yours. I gave it to the nurse before you were born. I asked her to put it on you when you arrived. Then they told me you were gone." Lucy stared at the crucifix without blinking. "I don't need you to choose me," Valerie said. "I didn't come to pull you away from your family. I came to tell you that I did not abandon you, and that I was looking forward to your birth with all my heart." Nora sobbed softly. Lucy picked up the crucifix with 2 fingers, as if it might burn her. "Why didn't you look for me sooner?" "Because I believed the people around me. Your biological father, the doctors, my mother-in-law. They showed me documents. They wouldn't let me see the body. I had just gone through a very hard labor and major surgery. Then they told me I couldn't have any more children. And now what? Now there will be an official investigation. If someday you want to know the truth for yourself, I will be here. If you don't want to, I won't try to force open a locked door." Lucy gripped the crucifix. "I don't know who you are." Valerie forced the next words out with great effort. "I am a woman who for 17 years thought she had buried her daughter. And today I am speaking to her alive for the very first time." No one moved in the room. Suddenly, Lucy covered her face with her hands. The crucifix remained clenched between her fingers. Nora tried to hug her, but the girl pulled away. "Don't touch me, please." The girl lowered her hands. There were tears on her cheeks, but her voice stayed steady. "I will keep the crucifix. But for now, that doesn't mean I believe you. That's fine with me." Lucy stood up. "I need to go home." Before walking out, she turned around. "Is that letter for me?" Valerie froze. "Yes. Give it to my dad." Valerie handed the envelope to George. He took it gently, without hostility. When the door closed, Evans stood up. "You held your ground." Valerie looked at Lucy's empty chair. "Not me," she said. She held her ground. "I just tried not to ruin it." Lucy agreed to submit to a court-ordered DNA test, though not immediately, but 12 days after the meeting, when the crucifix was no longer kept in a box, but appeared around her neck. Valerie didn't find out from the detective. Inspector Fletcher didn't communicate anything that wasn't strictly necessary, just as he had warned. The call came from George Brooks. "She is willing," he said in a muted voice, "but only with us present, and without Hugh." Valerie was sitting by the window in Irene's shop. After leaving the apartment, she had moved temporarily into a small back room behind the racks, where there was a sofa and the smell of fabrics, steam iron, and coffee. "I am not going to meddle in that family or turn the daughter against them," she told her friend. "She is afraid." Irene nodded. "I am too. Nora is terrified of losing her daughter." Valerie traced the rim of her mug. "I am not going to snatch Lucy away. I know that." On the appointed day, they met at a medical clinic. The hallway was brightly lit, far too clean for so much tragedy. Lucy sat between Nora and George, clutching the sleeve of her hoodie. The crucifix gleamed at her neck. Valerie saw it and looked away instantly so the girl wouldn't feel pressured. "Hi," Lucy said. "Hi." The nurse called them by their last names. The sampling took barely a few minutes. Paperwork, signatures from the legal guardians, and sealed cotton swabs. Everything proceeded calmly, almost like routine paperwork. On the way out, Lucy stopped at a vending machine for water. "What if the result is different?" Valerie turned to her. "Then I will apologize and walk away. And if it is confirmed, then nothing will change. Unless you want it to. That doesn't happen in real life. It happens if, for once, The adults don't just think about themselves. The girl took her water bottle but couldn't bring herself to drink. I read the letter. Did you really go to the grave? Yes. Is there someone buried there? I don't know. Lucy turned pale. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have asked. You have the right to ask whatever you want. I just don't know if I want to know the answers yet. The girl walked away with George, while Valerie stayed by the machine, feeling for the first time in a long while that she wasn't being rejected. Lucy was talking to her. The court received the forensic results a few weeks later. Valerie was officially summoned to hear the conclusions regarding her status as a victim. Fletcher spoke soberly. Biological maternity is confirmed. She nodded. There were no tears. After the secret test, the waiting had exhausted any emotion that could spill over. What happens now? The proceedings continue. We cannot disclose details of the investigation. I understand. Your husband has been interrogated. You will be duly notified of the upcoming rulings. The divorce hearing was set for the end of the month. Hugh showed up with his lawyer and his mother. Agnes held herself straight, as if she were not entering a courtroom, but rather the house of someone beneath her. Is there any willingness to reconcile? The judge asked. No, Valerie replied. Hugh looked up. My wife is acting under the influence of third parties. It is still possible to save the family. Valerie looked at him for the first time all morning. You cannot save a family after having sold a daughter. The judge issued a warning about the use of terminology and brought the focus back to the main issue. Evans spoke calmly. Irreconcilable differences, loss of trust, de facto separation, impossibility of reconciliation. Property matters would be resolved separately. The divorce decree was issued after a recess. At the door, Agnes asked her in a low voice, Do you think you have won? No, but Lucy will live free of your lies. She will never call you mother. That is something only she can decide. The criminal process ran its course without her having to intervene in every detail. Valerie only knew what was officially communicated to her or what she heard through her lawyer. Fletcher, however, pieced together that old truth. In the hospital archives, forensics analyzed the logs. The entry about a baby girl born alive was written with one type of pen. The death note appeared later, with different pen pressure and an error in the unit number. There was no corresponding entry in the morgue log. In Dr. Sylvia Vance's planner, they found the initials, dates, and sums of money. Next to the entry regarding the room was Agnes's name and the abbreviation Hugh M. Vance feared Woods would make her the sole scapegoat, so she testified against him. She recounted that the handover of the baby took place through the service exit at dawn and confirmed the meeting between Hugh and Agnes. Woods held out a bit longer, but Rosemary's recording, the logs, and a cross-examination dismantled his defense. At first, Hugh simply kept repeating that he didn't understand anything. Then, he couldn't explain why he had hidden the note attached to the plant delivered to Valerie, nor how he knew the name Lucy Brooks before anyone had verified it. Agnes tried to frame the crime as an act of charity. My son was drowning in debt. Valerie was barely conscious. The Brooks gave the girl a decent life. Did you receive the money? The detective asked. We received help in exchange for the baby, in exchange for solving a problem. The sentence was recorded in the police report. Later, Evans only made one comment to Valerie. She just proved what she thought Lucy was: merchandise. The Brooks were dealing with their own internal trial, without benches or magistrates. For a few days, Nora didn't let Lucy out of her sight, but then she realized she was only suffocating her more. I am terrified of waking up one day and finding out you've gone with her, she confessed one night in the kitchen. Lucy sat at the table, stirring the spoon in her mug. I am not an object, Mom. Nora shuddered. You called me Mom. I was angry, but you're still my mother. Nora covered her face with her hands. I should have checked. You wanted to take me home with you. I guess that is why you believed it. George walked in silently, placed a plate of cookies on the table, and sat next to her. No one is trying to split you in half, Lucy. We will stay by your side, even if you decide to have a relationship with Valerie. And if I don't want to, then you don't. And if I want to, but then I change my mind, then you change your mind. The girl watched her parents for a long time, then asked, Can I text her? The message reached Valerie very late. It's Lucy. I don't really know what to say. I have the crucifix, the letter too. For now, that's all. Valerie read those brief lines for so long that the screen went dark. She didn't reply right away. Thank you for texting me. I am here. I am not asking for anything. 2 days later, Lucy sent her a picture of a kitten. A little gray fur ball rested next to a tabby cat. My cat had a litter. This one is the loudest. Valerie smiled for the first time in many weeks. So, she has a personality. Her name is Vita. That is a beautiful name. The conversation flowed in fits and starts. Sometimes Lucy would vanish for a whole week. Other times she would ask questions at midnight. What was I like when I was born? Valerie spent a long time thinking about the answer. I barely had time to see you. I remember your weight from the chart. I remember the crying from behind the partition. I remember your tiny heel when they carried you away. After that, only emptiness. Lucy didn't reply until the next morning. I am so sorry. Valerie texted back. You don't have to apologize. At the beginning of winter, the preliminary hearing for the criminal trial took place. Valerie attended with Evans. In the courthouse hallways, Hugh looked thinner. Agnes carried her purse hooked on her arm, staring blankly over everyone's heads. Woods sat on another bench with his lawyer, flipping through documents. Sylvia Vance didn't lift her head. A court could dictate who the guilty were, hand down sentences, rule which documents were forged, and certify the sums of money collected. But it couldn't give back the first steps, the first word, the first day of school, the colds, or the childhood drawings in a sketchbook. The hearing didn't last long. The terms illegal transfer of a minor, document forgery, receipt of illicit funds, and concealment of biological origin echoed coldly through the room. Behind each of those phrases were destroyed lives. When the judge read the verdict, at first Hugh didn't process that he wouldn't be walking out of there on his own 2 feet. His face fell only after hearing the phrase, active prison sentence and remand to a correctional facility. A Boston police officer stepped toward him. Woods hung his head. Vance brought her hand to her mouth. Agnes clung to her purse, but for the first time, she was left speechless. Hugh turned toward Valerie from the defendant's table. Are you happy? Evans made a move to answer, but she stopped him with a look. No. Then what was all this for? So that no one will ever call a lie salvation again. Lucy isn't going to be yours either. She is not a trophy. The officer ordered Hugh to move forward. He offered a smile dripping with hatred, but didn't dare argue. You always played the saint while everyone else suffered. Valerie looked at the person she once eagerly awaited from business trips. The one she nursed when he was sick. The one she celebrated on birthdays. The one she considered her rock. Now, she was looking at a frightened man who hadn't protected his family, but only his own version of the past. I spent 17 years suffering because of you, she said. That is enough. Agnes tried to approach her son, but the court officer stopped her. Hugh was led away alongside the doctors through the side door. Later, once the sentence was finalized, they would be transferred to serve their time. After the trial, Valerie returned to the apartment where the flower pot had once broken. Hugh had managed to move some of his things to his mother's house through his lawyer before the verdict. What remained was the empty space among the books on the shelf, a forgotten razor in the bathroom, his coffee mug in the kitchen. Valerie gathered all the foreign leftovers into a box and put them out by the door. The plant remained by the window, the leaves had perked up, and a new sprout was emerging. She watered the soil, wiped down the windowsill, and for the first time, didn't flinch when looking at it. We will pull through, she said softly. The apartment answered her with silence, but that silence was no longer the same. It no longer hid a child. It no longer muttered behind her back. It no longer erased her memory. Several months passed. At first, Lucy came accompanied by Nora. She would sit in the kitchen, sip her tea, and flip through old photos of Valerie before the pregnancy. Nora maintained a tense posture, but one day she brought a pie. I am terrible at baking, she said, but Lucy likes it. Valerie accepted the pie with both hands. Thank you. They didn't become close friends. That would have been fake. But they stopped seeing each other as enemies. Between them was a girl they both loved, and each was learning not to force her to pick a side. George helped Valerie obtain copies of the paperwork after the legal recognition of her maternity. One day at the door, he said, I didn't know, but it was my duty to have checked. I was also guilty of believing for too long. I did the same, Valerie replied. Slowly, Lucy started staying alone with her, first for 15 minutes, then a whole hour. One day, she brought her sketchbook. On the last page was a pencil sketch, a woman looking out a window next to a large potted plant. It's not a portrait, the girl rushed to clarify. It's just a composition study. I understand. It's a very good drawing. Lucy blushed and turned the page. Toward the end of winter, she came to see her alone. She called ahead, But her voice sounded so strange that Valerie spent the whole day pacing around the apartment, moving mugs from one spot to another. At 7:00 p.m., the doorbell rang. On the threshold stood Lucy holding a pet carrier. Inside, something meowed weakly. "Can I come in?" Of course. The girl stepped in and set the carrier down in the entryway. "My cat had kittens a couple of months ago. Almost all of them have been adopted, but this one couldn't find a home. She is the loudest, and she is always getting into places she shouldn't." Valerie crouched down. Looking back at her from the carrier was a little gray kitten with a white patch on her nose. A tiny paw batted at the grate. "What did you say her name was?" "Vita." And I thought. Lucy hesitated. "I thought this place was a little too quiet." Valerie carefully opened the small door. The kitten sidestepped out, let out a tiny hiss, and froze. "Hello, Vita. She is a girl, but she acts like she's the boss. We will work something out." Lucy took off her jacket. For the first time, she did it without having to be asked. She walked into the living room and stopped next to the plant. "This is the plant." "Yes. I figured you would have thrown it away." "No, the plant wasn't to blame for anything." The girl stroked a leaf. "It's weird. Everything started because of it. Because of it, everything stopped being a lie." Vita waddled into the living room, slipped comically, and settled onto the rug. Her little tail vibrated with self-importance. Lucy looked at the kitten, then at Valerie. "I still don't know what to call her." Valerie didn't move. "You don't have to decide right now. But I want to try getting to know her. Little by little." Those words were spoken softly, without grand promises. And yet, there was more life in them than in all the legal documents Valerie had spent months gathering. "We have plenty of time," she said. Lucy nodded and sat on the sofa. "Will you make me some tea?" "Sure." Valerie went into the kitchen and turned on the electric kettle. Her hands were no longer shaking. Outside the window, night was falling. On the rug, Vita had fallen asleep. In the kitchen sat a mother and a daughter, bound by blood, separation, and a cautious hope. Between them, there were still lost years that no one could give back. But for the first time, those years no longer stood like an insurmountable wall. They had become a path they could walk toward each other, without rushing and without demanding the impossible.